Welcome back to The Reckoning. Into the next segment we roll along, and I'm very glad to be joined on the phone now by Mr. Daniel Perkins. He is the co-author alongside Sheriff Richard Mack of a brand new book, The Democrat Murder of America, Demagoguery in the First Degree. I love a good subtitle. But Dan Perkins, he's an author, broadcaster, a media personality who has spanned all of the mediums, publishing, radio, television, podcasting. Does a lot of work in veterans advocacy as well. And I'm very happy to have him on to talk about his new book with Sheriff Mack. I think this is something that we are seeing play out in front of us as we just covered some of the Michigan election results. We're seeing it across the country, but through the book now. Mr. Dan Perkins, how are you doing, sir? Thank you for being on with me for a little bit.
I'm fine, and thank you for having me on.
I'm very glad to do it. And again, folks, this is the book, The Democrat Murder of America, Demagoguery in the First Degree. Of course, Dan, I think a lot of our folks probably familiar with Sheriff Mack. They've heard his name, of course, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. But I'm really happy to see you bring this book to life with him, because we really are facing a new era of a new, really, Democrat Party, especially as, well, what I would call the Civil War inside it brews over into more and more states. We just saw another big win by an extreme leftist candidate, a socialist, a communist, I would call him, in Michigan. But tell me, what brought forward the premise for this book? Why now, and what message are you hoping to get across to the people who pick it up to read?
Well, the purpose of this book is it's a non-fiction book. It's a real book, real people, real events. And what we're trying to do is to show the American electorate that when the Democratic Party was established in 1828 by Congress, it has had one mission that they've worked on the entire time since then: controlling the government and shaping it into the mission and the way they wanted it to. And they used violence, murder, rape, intimidation. They do not care about the American people. They care only about their ability to try and gain power. And in this book, there are 37 chapters of examples of how the Democratic Party has used violence and murder and intimidation to try and manipulate the American voters to give them what they want, which is more power.
And I think that this is very appropriate for now, because as you know, a lot of people, including some newcomers to the political scene for the first time, and I don't mean in terms of running, I mean people who are just paying attention for the first time. We've had a lot of folks wake up, whether this is the era of Trump that brought them into politics really for the first time, or back to it, or the COVID scamdemic. That, of course, brought a lot of people out of the woodwork to start paying attention again. And as they've done so,
right,
we have been experiencing tumult inside the Democrat Party. It almost looks like, to some eyes, that, hey, wow, our old school liberals like the FDR Democrats are being taken over by this Marxist wing. It sounds like what you're putting together is a much more accurate picture of, the Democrat Party for a long, long, long time, even these old mainstream sounding liberals, have had in mind a totalitarian vision with them at the top for quite some time. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't care about me and you.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, current example. Can you name the two people that were shot in Minneapolis?
No, I cannot recall the names.
And I'm not criticizing you for that. I'm using that as an example. The Democratic Party used those two people in the news cycle for as long as they could. And when they no longer could get news out of those two people, they cast them away and look for the next person that they could manipulate to get the party what they wanted. So they use people, they pick them, they use them, and then they toss them away to get on with the rest of their life, however they've been damaged or killed, or their families. It's like after the Civil War, it was the Democratic Party who established the Ku Klux Klan. It was the Democratic Party who established Jim Crow. It was the Democratic Party that, from the time of about 1887, when Jim Crow was passed, to 1950, that 4,000 black men were hung in the South. But what nobody's told you is that at the same time 4,000 black men were being hung, abolitionists from the North who came to try and help the black people get the rights that the Constitutional Amendments gave them, in the same time that 4,000 blacks were hung, 1,200 white Republicans were also hung in the South. But nobody talks about that.
No, they certainly don't, and it's a story that's slightly familiar to me, but something that I think a lot of people need to be well educated on. I'm very glad that this work that you've put together with Sheriff Mack reaches back to understand the historical side of this, exactly what we've done. So let me ask you this: as we watch, the spread of just outright Marxism by no other name, of course,
Right.
understanding the history is so very important. That used to be able to point at someone and call them a communist, and it would strike fear into the hearts of people around. You'd get a gasp from the room because this was such an understood evil. It's just not that way anymore. We have so many folks, adults even now, who have gone through a public education system that has revised so much of this completely out of public view. They are unaware of the history of Marxism, communism, and other nations, of the Democrat Party here, and how often we have flirted with those ideas, maybe in a softer way. As we watch this leadership struggle, this power struggle between now just out of the closet Marxists and the old guard, maybe you could call them, of the Democrat Party, what do you attribute that to? Is there really any ideological difference between them, or is it really simply a power struggle for who's on top in that major political party?
That's a really good question. I've been thinking about that a lot since this book came out, and I keep asking myself the question as I finish the book: what happened that what apparently seems to be all of a sudden the Democrats decided that democratic socialists and communists could come out and tell people they were communists and socialists?
Mhm.
What happened? And what happened was two things. One, our education system has done nothing to teach future generations what is the difference between capitalism, socialism, and communism. We don't teach that. Number two, the country was divided because if you look at the manifesto, they want to get rid of the president, they want to get rid of the Senate, they want to get rid of the Supreme Court, they want to get rid of the jails, the prisons, and police officers, and on and on and on. If you look at it and you listen to what they're saying, that comes from one source, Barack Obama. Remember when he
Yeah.
said, I've got a pen and a phone and I don't need Congress to get accomplished what I want.
Mm.
And by the way, remember, you didn't build that. We did.
Yeah, you didn't build that. Oh boy, I
You
don't.
didn't build that.
You want to talk about one of the political catchphrases that has stuck, maybe much more unfortunately than the utterer of it wishes it had. That one certainly has stayed in public memory, at least for a lot of folks I know.
Hmm. And so I believe that the party began to split dramatically when Barack Obama came in as the organizer out of Chicago,
Mm.
who had never run a business, never was employed in a business, lived at the trough, and continued to live at the trough, and was an excellent speaker. And he motivated people by hope and change. And we didn't get hope, and all we got was change in our pockets. and and he created the whole foundation that allowed more and more people. The other thing is, there's a chapter in the book, "Danger Ahead, White Chicks."
Mm.
Now, that is an analysis of what's going on in our society today, that the most severe liberals on the left are female, unmarried, college education women from the ages of 18 to 29. If you look at over the last 2 years at any of the times we had protests on the campus, and you look at the people who were out front with bullhorns raising hell, it was white women.
Mm.
White women are in control of most of the organizations on campus, including some of the black organizations are controlled by white women, and they're angry. And yet, in our book, when we talk about white women and we look at what they're doing as far as their happiness, their success, their medical problems, their mental health issues, they are screwed up big time. And that's why they've become so violent and so ridiculous. I believe, and I've been saying this for some time, I felt in the first of the year, whenever all the rhetoric was how the Democrats were going to wipe out the Republicans in the House and the Senate and take control of both.
Mm.
I said at the time, I don't think so. And when they started to go dumping off the deep end, and when you've got liberals like Bill Maher last week was talking about his vote is probably in play now,
Hmm.
and he talks about all the crazy things that the Democrats, I think that what's going to happen, you're going to see a fundamental change after Labor Day when the Republican Party is going to basically run advertisements of all the speeches that the far left is talking about getting rid of the president, the secretary, the the Senate, and the judges and the courts and jails and prisons and police officers. They're going to. That's what their story. You have to make a decision, Mr. or Mrs. America.
Mhm.
Is that what you want? Do you want the Constitution thrown out? Do you want the Declaration of Independence thrown out? Do you want to have the government take over all private sector businesses and run them? Do you think they have the ability and the talent to run all the businesses in America? I think that that's going to be the primary message from the Republican Party to the American electorate. And I think they're going to lose big time. They also lost at the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court said you can no longer have districts based on race.
Yeah.
And that could swing 30 to 40 Democrat seats to Republicans.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We are on the precipice of a very important set of decisions. And I think this book, The Democrat Murder of America, could certainly help a lot of folks understand the history and just push us over the edge in the right direction. Daniel Perkins, again, a co-author with Sheriff Richard Mack on this new book, murderofamerica.com. Go and find it. Dan Perkins, thank you so much for some time telling us about the book.
Thank you, sir. I
All right.
appreciate it.
We'll talk again. Folks, we'll be right back. Another half hour of The Reckoning is on the way.